Hello, 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 and welcome to the Return to Jurassic Park review. So now I'm just letting some of the first mission play, just not to spoil any of the campaign at the moment. So we'll just let the first mission go through and have a look at all the cool things. So this was my first thoughts before I get to review anything particular. I really enjoyed this DLC. Like I didn't really go in expecting this incredible story with plot twists and such, but as something to focus your experience of Jurassic Park, it was a very good game, and the content was actually kind of worth the money rather than the other two big DLCs. Because Secrets of Doctor Wu, I enjoyed Doctor Wu though. I thought that was a good DLC with the story as like the nefarious plot, and Sanctuary was also good. It was just a little bit drawn out. But I think this one really added the most. You got the most bang for your buck out of the three. Because even though it was $5 extra, we got basically a whole new building theme and 10 different model variants for our Jurassic Park dinosaurs and two completely new animals. So I think we'll start first. I'm going to go through the list of what they added new and just go through my thoughts on them. So I think we'll start with the story. I won't give any spoilers, of course. Plus, there's not that much to spoil. But we have, for the first, we got 7 missions going through. The first few go to Isla Nublar, where we are here, and then we go to Isla Sorna, and then come back and try and make Jurassic Park. And we have this. The people that we have in here are Dr. Ali Sattler, with Laura Dern reprising her role. Same with Sam Neill as Alan Grant, and Jeff Goldblum's back again as Malcolm. And then John Hammond is played by Mackenzie Gray, because unfortunately Richard Attenborough has passed away a few years ago, so he was not able to reprise his role. Then we also get little Cabot Finch, a young Cabot Finch, which is a little bit weird to see an old man voice coming out of a young guy like that, but he played a really fun role in the story. He was kind of like the comic relief. He's a bit of a, I won't say he's he's a little bit annoying, I'd say, but he is really good comic relief because he just says dumb things, and I think the characters did a really good job of playing off each other. Like I really liked, obviously Jeff Goldblum. He did a really good job with like being snide, and he's actually a pretty good voice actor. That was pretty good on him, and Laura did a good job. I think she was kind of like overacting it a little bit, but that's just my personal opinion, of course. All of this is just mainly personal opinions. And Sam Neill really did reflect his character. He isn't that great of a voice actor, unfortunately, even though I love the man to death. He's obviously Kiwi born and bred, just like me. But I think he did a good a job as he could. He really did play his character well, though. He did act like stern Grant and a bit grumpy. He seemed to come off like that, but I think he did a good job with that. And each of these missions, I won't go into particulars, but a lot of them, I don't even know how to say it really. It's just I don't want to spoil it. I think I'll just skip the missions for now. But there are 7 of them. The first couple, obviously, in this island and then Nublar. So I think we'll talk about the new locations. So we got a 1993 map, which we're here. It's a very nice shape. Like there's iconic areas. You got the raptor pen, and we got the valley where we see the first Brachiosaurus with the lake and everything, which looks really beautiful. And we've got a forest bit with the visitor center and little Dilophosaur enclosure. And then on Isla Sorna we have. Isla Sorna was fun because it's got like 2 different mountains in the middle. So there's like three big bits where you can actually like really play on, but then the rest of it's quite spindly, which is really fun to drive around because it's like in an inlet, and like on the edge of the map there is, you go down and there's like a bay area and then it goes out to the ocean with fog, so it's really fun to drive down. I personally wouldn't see it much as something that a lot of people will play on, but like just driving around it was really fun because you get to see all the different inlets and such, and that was really cool. And I think, and the both maps are pretty large. The Jurassic Park 1993 map is quite circular, and I think about the same size as Sanctuary, which is a really good shape for building big parks. Although in Sauna, even though it's not good for building parks, it's fun to drive around, and you could even potentially just let wild dinosaurs loose on there, like they did in the campaign. So what we have is they added two new dinosaurs, even though Pteranodon is not a dinosaur. We'll start with Pteranodon. They added Pteranodons, which come with their own building, the aviary. And now, the aviary is actually really well done. It's like a it's something that you place down like a normal building, but it's kind of like its own hatchery. So you don't have to worry about having to hatch a Pteranodon and then put it in the aviary. You just hatch it into the aviary. And you can have a maximum up to six, and each individual has a looped animation. And when you have six in there, you can barely tell. And it's, even though people say, "Oh, it's a looped animation," it's done really well. It's a long loop. They'll fly around, land somewhere, preen themselves, do a cleaning or something animation, go somewhere else. So I think they did a really good job with the looped animations in the aviary, and that was fun. And there are a few different skins. There's one that really looks like the 1997 skin, uh, with the blue on the face, though the model doesn't really look like it. I hope they do a remodel in the future. I think that's going to come in one of my DLC ideas I'm planning to make a video on. And the other dinosaur, they can die of old age as usual, and they can escape if there's storm damage to the aviary. They just fly up in the air. It isn't extremely theatric, but it's still cool to think that there are actual animals that just go and disappear and you have to buy new ones. So yeah, and the next dinosaur we have is Compsognathus, which is the small owl, the smallest dinosaur in the game, which looks very accurate to its movie counterpart, of course, but the size I think is a little bit of an issue just because you can barely see it even when you're running around in like a jeep. Even it's just so difficult to see in the grass. I feel like it might have benefited from actually being in a pre-made enclosure similar to the Pteranodon, but as it is, it's still a fun animal to have. It's really cool that you can use it to like bring some life to enclosures. Like if you have T-Rex or something, they won't, something like a T-Rex or an Allosaurus, they won't eat the compies because they're far too small. But you got to be careful with medium carnivores because they will. So what you got to do with the compies is kind of like put them in with large carnivores to have them darting around. It looks more fun when they're darting around, and put more movement on with the giant carnivores. I think that's a good contrast and keeps an enclosure like that very interesting. But you can still see them and they're still really fun. They're hard to see from like these kind of views, but if you zoom in and you look a little flecks of green or whatever color skin you've put on, you can see them, and it's fun to see. It's fun to see them herd around a little bit, and the sounds is just on point. I think they did a really good job with the compies. And now they added 10 new model variants for all the animals, like the more important, we could say, Jurassic Park animals. So we have a T-Rex model. We got one T-Rex remodel that's meant to look like the 1993 individual, because the Rex, other than the skins, has not changed that much. So we got two versions of the T-Rex, two versions of the 1997 one, the kind of like male and female, you could say. and then we got 2001 two Rex variants. So there's ultimately six. So we got two of each era. So we got two 1983, two 1987, two 2001. Then we got three, I think two or three new models for the Raptors. So we had the 1993 Velociraptor with a variant. We also have the 1997 male and female, which are the same model as the 1993, but with their skins, which are more movie accurate, and they look incredible, like 10 times better than anything we have in the game now for the Jurassic World ones, other than obviously the paid Raptor skin DLC. And the 2001 has its own model updates. We have the male and female. The male actually has quills and has a few updates, and it looks incredible. And the female has her white with black splotching over her, and she looks very cool. And just because they're male and female, the skins are labeled, but that does not mean there's breeding. Even though there is that counter breeding thing, it's just a story plot research thing. So don't get your hopes up about breeding just yet. So another one we got was a remodel for the Triceratops, which is based more on the 1993 Triceratops, which looks honestly probably one of the best in the game. Like, it just shoots up the Triceratops tenfold. It's even just the textures improve it, because the texture for the Jurassic World trike is just like rubbery and smooth. It's like a sanded elephant skin. But this one here for the Triceratops is just perfect. It's got all the different individual scales. There's been slight edits to its face. It just looks a hell of a lot better. And its horns, and it's just perfect. And the Stegosaurus just as well. They added a 1997 Stegosaurus, and each of these have some skin variants, like probably about five each. So some of the ones that have two, like Brachiosaurus, do have two. So with animals with two remodels, have two each, which is quite cool to see. Though we have two Brachiosaurus model variants. We have the one from 1993, so one that looks like the one in the first movie with the grey, and then we have a 2001 Brachiosaurus, which has its weird crest and its really thick tail and its skinny neck. It's not very accurate to the one in the first movie, but it just still looks really good. It's just interesting shape, and I love it. And each of those have another five skin variants, so you basically get 12 Brachiosaurus, which is pretty cool. I cannot complain about that. And then we have one Parasaurolophus that I think the model had been given slight changes. So we have like a green one that's based on 2001, and a more brownish one based on 1997 or The Lost World. Both of which are pretty good, I think. So, and then we end off with new skin for the Ankylosaurus from Jurassic Park 3 with the red, and it isn't 100% accurate to the one in the movie, but it is a remodel, and I think it still looks pretty good because the red on the face and the black does come up really good. So now some of the skins, like with animals, they have a bunch of variants. I think the only exceptions are the trike, not the trike, the Tyrannosaurus and the Velociraptor, since they each have different remodels. So there's like, so there isn't like skin variants there's like six different variants of the 1993 model. There's only the ones that are canon, but the other ones that just have less skins are just color swapped. It's really not huge differences. It's the same pattern for pretty much all of them. It's just that the colors have been swapped, so it isn't really a major. And for the challenge mode and campaign, you can only get JP Jurassic Park era dinosaurs, so you won't be getting things that aren't in JP lore, like the 24. There's the ones obviously, of course, and then there's like ones that you pay for in packs, like Styracosaurus, Yorpocephalus, Dryosaurus, Baryonyx, things like that. If you play it as a whole list, it's only about 24 of them rather than the 60 from the roster, so you only get about the third the dinosaurs, which is okay. I think restricting the dinosaurs on some maps really helps with making good enclosures because you don't want to feel like they need to pack everything in. And then we got a whole new bunch of buildings. We got a new visitor center, which looks pretty accurate to the one in the movie, other than a few little things. But you can also, it's kind of like a hub for it's replacing your Jurassic, it's replacing the research, the expedition, and the fossils, so it's all in one. Along with the arrival helipad, that just kind of functions as both a importing dinosaurs to Isla Nublar and people, so you can place it anywhere in your park, and that's where guests will come. There's also the ranger outpost because you don't have helicopters in this DLC, so basically doing everything from your jeep, which obviously encourages you to go out and drive more, which is actually quite fun and a bit more dangerous now with the vehicle destruction, but I'll get into that soon. Then we have a new power plant and hatchery and park tour and all that. We'll start with the park tour. The park tour is quite similar to the Jurassic tour that was from Clear Sanctuary, but just with a reskin. That's really all that's changed. And you get the Ford Explorers, which look awesome, and they are very important because in this DLC we don't have any like viewing vents or viewing platforms that we'll get, which is a little bit annoying, but I can understand why to try and make it more accurate and plus to condense it. So the only way to see your dinosaurs is either have them in front of the guests as normal, or you take your park tour and you take it around your park. And we have the geothermal power station, which is accurate to the film because it's run off geothermal power, and it looks fun. Everything, all the buildings in here really look the style, like the cafe and the gifts. I think Masson Slot did a video where he goes through every single one, but I'm not going to go too much into them. So there's like a bunch of new buildings. They all fit the style, and there's 3 new fences. There's a light cable fence, electrified cable fence, and heavy cable fence. And the cable fence is really based on the Jurassic Park 3 fence with the Spinosaurus scene. The electric cable fence is just like your standard JP1, and the light cable fence is just a lighter one that's cheap and good for smaller dinosaurs that don't like breaking out. And they've also added like just reskins like substations of pylons. They also added the tour gate, which you obviously cannot leave out, and it looks incredible. You have the fire, and at night it lights up, and that's just incredible. And we also have an entrance gate, which is just instead of being blue, is red. And some new paths, just cheap, normal, fancy paths. I kind of wish they added wider variants, but considering this, you don't really have huge parks in this because you don't really have many paths going around. It's just kind of like your hub area, and then you have the park tour. That makes sense. And now there's like a JP style feeders as well. There is just a slight reskin, like with the goat feeder. It's just a cage, and it's only just it's not hasn't not much changed mechanically, just the different models. And there's also a bunch of Jurassic Park scenery stuff, like there's a Velociraptor pen now, which we saw earlier in this video. It's just a decoration, it isn't anything too incredible. You don't use it for actual animals, it's just a decoration. We also have like different sign variants, like saying East Dock, Aviary, like the one with Nublar and the round circle. And then also the Dilophosaurus, the one with the Dilophosaurus you see in the first movie. You have like different variants of that for each animal in the DLC, and then you have more variants based on like Ankylosaurid, Pachycephalosaur, things like that to more encompass other animals in your park. And also restroom. There's also the restroom that they built that actually means anything. So if you place a restroom, it actually counts as a mechanic to the restroom mechanic. But there's this scenery one that looks more accurate to the one in the movie, and you just place anywhere, and it's got some plants around it. It looks really good. And there's also ground lighting as well, so you can place some lights around the ground. Hopefully they add more variants to this in like a Jurassic World DLC, which I got an idea for, and I'll do that later, of course. But you can see that there is a bunch of ground lights that you can put down and show around your park, so at night isn't so dark. And we'll see to the guests. Well, there hasn't been much too many changes to the guests. It's just more variants. You get to see, because obviously with inflation, money is you can with inflation things like the more money you have. I'm not going to explain inflation here, but here's just the more it's easier to reflect the economy from 1993 rather than 2018-19 with money kind of being diluted. So even though you see only 4.5 million there, 4.5 million back in 1993 is worth a lot more than now. So there we have more guest variants. We have like a tourist style guests, which are more meant to fit the 1993 style, along with security and operations and rangers. And there's also two new management views as well. We have transport rating and fun rating, which are not in the they're not new, but they've just changed them, so you don't have to worry about them in your challenge maps when you're playing with Jurassic World, because since there's no buildings that actually fill that need. And contracts are just more accurate to the era that they're in, so you don't need to worry too much about getting some ridiculous uh, missions just because it's meant to fit more the JP style. And there's tour rides, which is the park tour, which is quite similar to the Jurassic tour, of course. And there's a sandbox toggle, so you can add that. Dinosaur visibility is covered by park tours, yeah. So you can't add viewing vents or such. You have to use the park tour. It's basically you have to put one around your park so your guests can see. And there's night vision and binocular upgrades, which binocular just means you have like a slightly more focused view, so you can see dinosaurs a little bit further out, and you can use binoculars. You can even go in there and use the night vision, which just adds like a green tint to it pretty much. It doesn't really change the view, but it's cool to have, so increase visibility during night. And UI, there's been not they said they were making a new AI, but it really hasn't changed. It's still the same blue. They just added Mr. DNA in the research view, which was cool, you know. Oh, Mr. DNA. And they just combined the UI for the visitor center and just a lot of general changes to fit with some of the new updates, like the ranger vehicle here. So now there's condition, medicate, tranquilize, and flare. So you can kind of do it from both your ranger vehicles and your ACU now. And then we have two new sandbox maps, which is the two in this DLC. And you can play both campaign and sandbox on both of them. And there has been not much changes. Other than that, there's some new achievements. There is Return Jurassic Park versions of music, like something just to reflect more on the time. And obviously the actors reprising their roles, except for John Hammond. They have added audio just to go with the story, part of the campaign. And there's a couple new skins. And there's not much changes in terms of the update that come along with it. It's just there's a restroom need now, so you have to also put restrooms in your park. And there's been some updates with the Jeeps now, so you can also tranquilize and use flares, and same with the ACU, you can now medicate from them. And so basically, if you don't have one, you can just use the other, which is good. And now that you can actually get damage as a ranger team, you've got to be a lot more careful now when you're going in certain enclosures with animals like stegosaurs and triceratops, and even large carnivores. You got to be really careful around them now. and it's called. And they also added. This is a really nice addition though. Redwoods. Those redwoods are like a godsend because all the other. It really adds another level of verticality to your park because a lot of the trees are like not even barely taller than Brachiosaurus, but now you can have really tall trees that really add height to your park and scale. And it's just amazing like how something so little can add so much. Same with the texture remodels. It's just I feel like this is the only one that's really worth the money, even though the other two have cool concepts and gameplay additions, which was fun. But I want to get into some of the gripes that I have because I feel like it's weird that they didn't put any, like they didn't put a replacement for every group. I feel like everything is just a little too condensed, so you can't really have too much variation. Like, what if I don't want to do a big park tour? What if I just want to put like a viewing platform and viewing vents on my enclosure? You can't do that because there isn't a, and you also can't mix them in sandbox. So you have to fundamentally change how you play in a challenger sandbox. Even though I think in sandbox at least you should be able to use them. For some reason they don't let you use them both in the same park, which is a little annoying because I have like a big park with like 300 plus dinosaurs that I really enjoy, and I really want to change some of that into JP style fences and such, but they won't let me, which is a little bit annoying. But it is how it is. I think a lot of people also agree with me, so I think they'll change that. Knowing Frontier, if you whine about it enough, they'll change it. And what other things didn't I like? There was. I can't think of other things I disliked. Yeah, there was just a little bit. One thing I was noticed that with the story is that we don't spend too much time on. I'll put spoilers from now on, so just be warned. We didn't spend that much time on Isla Sorna. It's a fun map, but you only do two missions, and the rest are on Isla Nublar. And the missions that were in the, I didn't really bother with the missions that were already in the Nublar map because a lot of them were just they didn't add enough because like usually they didn't add enough reputation to each one, so I felt like they just kind of dragged it out just to try and get 5 stars and get all this other stuff that you need, which you don't really need anyway because once you just finish the story, you unlock all the JP stuff for challenge mode. So you don't really need to pay past the campaign, so you can just leave it at whatever stars you had it at. With the reputation doesn't really have an effect. So that's one thing that's annoying. The only real annoying thing is not being able to mix them, because that's just really annoying. That's annoying when you're trying to be creative. And I hope that in the future we get a lot more signage and stuff that goes with the Jurassic World aesthetic. Also, a lot of stuff that also carries over. Like we could actually get a fun need in transport need. We could get like a Jurassic Park style monorail or greenhouse, arcades and such that add fun. I think that would be cool to see. So we can have more building variations for both themes. Because what's weird is that it's kind of lacking for the Jurassic World theme. I think we'll have to go back a bit. No, now we'll keep it going. For Jurassic World theme, it's really like a what's the word? You're really lacking like certain like signs and such, and then the other way around for the Jurassic Park one, you're really lacking some of the buildings like the monorail. There's no fun rating. I kind of wish we had some buildings that were fun, like maybe arcade, Jurassic Park style arcade or rock center. Well, here's a good look at the Isa Sauna map while we're here. Uh, I feel like both of those could really just use a bit of a bolster, either in DLC or free updates. Though I think the only thing that really needs to be a top priority is making sure we can use both styles in Sandbox, because I feel like that's a really dumb restriction when we really want to be creative. So I'll let this cinematic play. And I want to thank you for watching and hearing my views. I'd love to hear your opinions on what you think and what you dis and disagree with. And hopefully you like and subscribe. And bye bye.